I am the Executive Manager Corporate Services of the Moses Kotane Institute. I will be your Program Director today. We are ready to start. We have guests in the room. Welcome to all of you. We have guests online attending via Teams and other media platforms. Welcome to you too. I would like to introduce the chairperson of the Moses Kotane Institute Board, Ms. Spelele Komo, who is a chartered accountant of South Africa, a lecturer at the University of Zululand, not only a lecturer, a head of department. She has a vast experience in the boards. We can safely call her a governance specialist. I'll hand over to Ms. Komo to say her opening and welcome address. Thank you.
For the warm welcome. The Director, Advocate Mapipa, the board members present, the CEO and the executive of Moses, and the president, the members from our sister institution, the warm welcome to our keynote speaker, Dr. Pillay, other speakers, and the panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and good morning. Very safe the English dialogue that is being held today. What a way of closing the Entrepreneurship Month. Please don't that the mandate of Kotane is to pass on the research activities that will drive the economic policies this problem. And one of the key sectors that we focus on is maritime. Hence, the topic is today. Please, welcome in this session. Please participate and like to make sure that we influence the policies of this province and we contribute. So you are welcome and we're excited to have you. Thanks to the panel members, because we definitely want to break the barriers in this sector. This has been for a very long time, the barriers in the maritime sector. We are hoping that they will be able to come up with ideas as to how we can break this barrier in the maritime sector. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I hope we have full engagement. Come on.
Thank you so much to the chairperson, Mrs. Komo, for those warm words of welcome. We appreciate you. The next speaker is Mr. N. Mthembu, the MKI Maritime Entrepreneur and MKI beneficiary. He's one of the people who benefited from the program that we are celebrating today. He's going to speak to us about the obstacles and successes in the maritime entrepreneurship journey. He is here with us. Would like to call him up to the stage to speak to us. Mvelas.
Sanbonani, Dumelang, Absheni, Nimenhao, bonsoir. Asante sana. As a way of introduction, I am Kulego Mtembo, and 6 years ago when I came to this beautiful city of Durban, I actually started my journey and I landed. And at that time, I think it was when this precinct was being developed. And I remember vividly standing over there and saying to myself that I'm going to solve a very audacious goal in this world. And a couple of weeks later, I sort of took a trip down to the port in a harbor, and there's still an image of me that I'm standing there, and there are two vessels behind me. And I said, this is the problem that I'm going to solve. And today, consequently, I'm solving a 120 billion rand problem. And based on the incremental developments of the technology, we hope to grow per annum sort of 1% and are aspiring to own 1% of that market share. What we do essentially is preventative and predictive maintenance. So we use data analytics in understanding how assets of the port environment perform. So what this means is that OEMs and original equipment manufacturers do not have a fair understanding and a fair knowledge of how their equipment behaves in ports. In other words, you can buy a bolt for Durban and put it in Cape Town, and based on environmental factors, it'll operate differently. And what we've managed to do is across the last sort of 3 years was being able to sort of build a dashboard that fundamentally takes images and renders those images into subsets of data points. And using those subsets of data points, we're able to then advise client on how their equipment performs. And believe it or not, OEMs themselves don't understand how their equipment performs. And that is essentially the 120 billion rand problem that we are solving. So today, when I was given the task of saying, "Hey, come through and tell us about some of your failures and some of your successes as a sort of maritime entrepreneur." So, in creating a framework in the way that we address these, my challenges are essentially access to networks, access to markets, and access to capital. So those were the three sort of underlying issues or challenges that I had coming into the maritime environment. In terms of access to network, it really is a hard slog, and it is a deep exercise where in the first month of trying to understand and scope the environment, I had created a database, which is now I call a black book, of around 3,000 sort of entities that play in and around the maritime space in eThekwini. So understanding the positionality as well of the port meant that I had to posture myself outwardly into the world. And what that also meant was then exploring the world. And so with that exercise in mind, I then took a backpack trip across the continent. So I crossed borders, and I used public transport buses to understand what and the importance of that corridor of trade that the Port of Durban houses. And we understand that it contributes about 35% to provincial GDP, but more importantly, it contributes to levels of around 11% total GDP to South Africa. But that is just from a GDP level, and what we can't measure is what happens in the informal spaces. And having taken that journey, I think it really sort of, again, having to posture and place oneself as a global contender. 65% of the continent of Africa actually has exposed shorelines, and that then spoke about the size of the market, right? And fundamentally spoke about the ability to scale and the ability to grow the solution across other ports. There's also the idea of dry docks and dry hubs, and essentially plugging into those spaces. So that fundamentally solved the issue of around access to market. In terms of access to capital, I think the easiest way to access capital is to go into the marketplace, right? So having done that, having done a top-line exercise of understanding who the ship owners associations were, who the the freight forwarders, and the entire ecosystem of maritime and marine players, essentially went into market using firstly a pitch deck, but primarily a prototype around the solution that we had. Now, understanding that we're playing in the space of data analytics and some machine learning aspects, we then realized that we need to sort of address it and posture the position, the solution again, using the quadruple helix model, right? So how does a small organization such as myself, or a small startup such as myself, sort of lends itself to sort of research and innovation? So the output of some of the information that we have and how that becomes value to the stakeholders and the partners that we sort of have in the maritime ecosystem. But it was also understanding that partnership is also a great avenue to accessing market. So this is, again, looking at public and private partnerships, the likes of MKI, the likes of the eThekwini Maritime Cluster, looking at organizations like SASOA and the likes, and understanding that one of the biggest challenges, especially in a a context like South Africa, is looking at the technology adoption, right? So this was then fundamentally addressing this technology adoption by way of incrementally trying and building and leveraging resources, either through a research perspective and either through a practical ingesting ourselves into the marketplace. And then fundamentally, our biggest sort of challenge there was also given the ideas of traction and scale. So you can imagine trying to walk into a sort of SA shipyards, and I see Mr. Prashini Maharaj will be joining us later. It's just understanding that it's contesting with a global audience, right? So this means that as a small player within a South African context, my view needn't be myopic, but should have a panoramic view in understanding what other original equipment manufacturers are doing from the likes of your Denmarks, the Netherlands, and looking at what some of these global firms are doing, and looking at a vetting system on how we can get our technology sort of graded via ISO and the likes, to sort of play from a very sort of contextually and a very sort of a technically demanding space. And that then spoke about the issues of scale. So we're currently operating within the Port of Durban. We're also operating within other sort of marine and maritime environments, and more importantly, understanding the waterways and the water systems and how that feeds into that. If I were to give any advice to a young person wanting to enter into the maritime and marine environment, I would say take a partnering approach. The idea that collaboration is the new innovation. The success of some of the initiatives that we've built over time were hinged on our ability to partner with organizations meaningfully, to give them value and consequently derive value in that regard. And with that said, I would just like to leave those words with you. Collaboration is the new innovation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mvelase. We are very proud as MKI to have beneficiaries like yourself who come back and show recognition of the work that the Moses Kotane Institute has done. It is a sign of leadership. We hope that you will also mentor others that are coming after you. Now, we will have our keynote speaker coming up to the stage. She is here with us, a wonderful lady, Dr. P. Pillay, who's the director at the CSERI, in a research institute housed by the University of Durban University, called the DUT. She's going to speak to us about the relationship between enterprise and research. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Program Director. I would also like to say a very big thank you to Dr. Thandeka Ellenson, Dr. Langa Dlamini, Ms. Advocate Lishle Mapipa, Mrs. Sue Singh, and all the MKI team, as well as all the esteemed colleagues out here today. Greetings from DUT CSERI. I really feel very honored to be here today because my journey with Moses Kotane goes back a very long way. But I'm just going to share a little bit about some of the research and entrepreneurship issues that we face. And so I think, although I don't want to start off on a negative tone, I think it's very important for us to address some of the key issues. What are the key issues that we face in South Africa as a country? High levels of unemployment, inequality, students and students who are without jobs, graduates who don't have jobs, youth still sitting at home, not being able to be gainfully employed. These are some of the critical issues, and I think it's important for us to be able to really, I'm really glad that I'm here today, because I think this is a conversation that's very important for us to have. And what role can research and entrepreneurship play to address these issues? So I think, coming from a university background, research has a very important role to play, because with research you get to a deeper understanding of what is going on, what are the key issues, and also looking for solutions to the problems. So research plays a very important role. And I'm very fortunate that I'm also involved, the director of a business incubator at DUT. So entrepreneurship, developing entrepreneurship both among students and communities, is really such a big issue and such a big plus for us as well. It's really exciting to be part of this whole ecosystem, and it's really wonderful to see the maritime sector here, EDS here, and really this is an opportunity, I believe, for us as different entities within the ecosystem to work together to develop entrepreneurship and research so that the whole country can actually benefit. I'm just going to also talk about, when we talk about research, especially research in entrepreneurship, there's been so much research in entrepreneurship. A lot of it is theory, international research, as well as local research. A lot of it is about theory. And I just want to say that, what about impact? Given the situation that we find ourselves in South Africa, what we need to actually look at, what kind of impact are we contributing? I believe, yes, there's different types of research, and there's a place for different types of research, but unless there's impact, we're not addressing the key issues. What about the way forward? What kind of a society do we want to build? What kind of future do we want for our children? And the only way that one can actually do this is by really being conscious of impact. What impact are we creating through our research? And I'm saying this in all humility, because I do know we have a lot of high-end kind of technology, even at the university at DUT. We have high-end technology, and we have a lot of intellectual property licenses that have been developed through the university. But a lot of these IP are actually sitting, their licenses have expired, and so they haven't been put to use. So the question is this really a good thing for us? Shouldn't we be looking at other issues, other types of research that actually can add value to the community, that can add value to our students, that can add value to our industry as well? And I did a presentation, but unfortunately not able to actually put it up, but I will share it with you later. Sorry? Okay, I will share this with you a bit later. So I just want to maybe share one or two examples with you of research that has been very impactful. And the one is with entrepreneurship development in higher education, EDHE. So this is an initiative by actually the DHET. And it basically brings together all the 26 universities in South Africa to look at how can we develop entrepreneurship. And the question is, why do we need to develop entrepreneurship? Why did it suddenly become such a key issue now? Up until now, a lot of research has been more theoretical, and most of the universities depended on the research specifically for the funding that they got. Because, you know, with articles that you publish, books that you write, all of that brings in an added income for universities. So a lot of the focus was on really building this kind of research type of university. But I think understanding, when universities started understanding the challenges that we face, and the fact that they can't just live in this kind of ivory tower, that whatever they do needs to respond to the community around them, I think they've become more aware. A lot of universities have become aware. And so EDHE has actually been responsible for bringing all 26 universities together. and developing entrepreneurship at all the universities. So from about 2016 to about 2020, well, actually in March this year, I was the convener for communities of practices for entrepreneurial universities. And one of the key things we did was to develop the National University Ecosystem Baseline Report. So what this report does is basically it looked at all the universities and what kind of offerings they have in terms of entrepreneurship, what are the enablers that are present at each of the universities, and look to see what are some of the things that could do to actually develop these universities, the different types of universities. So basically, one of the key things of the research was basically to understand the ecosystem, where universities are, and then also to look at the possibility of developing a policy for entrepreneurship development in South Africa across all the 26 public universities. So that was one of the outcomes. It has been very impactful because what has happened is that this has provided a guideline for universities to develop their own strategies. And just to give you an example, at DUT, we have the Envision 2030. And one of the key strands of our Envision 2030 is entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship development plays a very key strategy. And so this is very important in that the kind of impact. So it's not only DUT, think of 26 universities and 26 universities looking to see how they can actually take this information and look at how they can actually develop their own strategic direction for entrepreneurship development. And this is also important because it also takes into account the different contexts of the different universities. Because if you look around South Africa, no two universities are the same. Some of the universities are much older, they've been around for a long time, they get funding from different organizations, international organizations. Other universities, and I'm just quoting some examples, for example, Univen, are really in rural areas, but they are actually adding so much of value to the students there. And they've already, for example, set up partnerships with international organizations that are able to get funding. They're doing things like agriculture, agribusiness, and things like that, which are critical if one looks at food security in South Africa. So they play a very key role and a very important role. So I think the report that we've done actually it really will be able to have an impact, really has an impact on the different universities. So what I have done is I've given Sue a copy of the report, which Moses Kotane, which you can keep here at Moses Kotane, and you can maybe read through it sometime. It gives you a pretty good idea. I'm not sure if you have read it already, but if you want another copy of the report, I brought one copy, that's the one that I had. If you want another copy, I'm sure I can always try and make provision to get you the other copy. So now I think I'm just going to would like to take you back on a little journey that I had with Moses Kotane, that started with Moses Kotane Institute, around about 2005, 6, 7, thereabouts. There was a time when Moses Kotane Institute was based in Westville, and they had a program for unemployed youth to train them in high-end IT, software engineering, network engineering, and database engineering. And during that time, I was the skills manager at Tikwini College, which is a TVET college based in Durban. And we were one of the colleges that was invited to participate and develop those students, to do the training for those students. And when we started, as I said, I was responsible for the implementation of that project. We were training around 250 students a year in high-end IT systems and things like that, like high-end architecture, IT architecture. And I often wondered what would happen. What would happen to these students once they've completed? How many of them would get jobs? And then I decided that, you know what, maybe we needed to look at what if these students were able to start their own businesses? What if they were able, those that came from rural areas and townships were able to start their own businesses? How would that, what would it be like? So this was a very big what if question that I had in my mind. And then that's when I decided to do my PhD in social entrepreneurship. And So my research was based on, it was an action research model, participatory action research model, a methodology. And where I actually worked, we had a selection of eight students from the program, selected these 8 students, and they came from townships and rural areas around KwaZulu-Natal. And in participatory action research, you have to immerse yourself with your participants and get to understand what it is they are doing and how they're doing things. So it was a very exciting research project where I was working with these students to see if they could set up businesses in the areas that they came from, the rural areas and the townships areas where they came from. And out of the 8 businesses, 3 businesses actually survived after that. But there were many challenges. Being so deeply immersed with these young people and being on the ground with them made me realize, maybe have a deeper understanding of challenges that people face in actually setting up entrepreneurs, setting up businesses. What are the challenges? There are so many different challenges that people face. So this gave me a deeper understanding of challenges that people face. And from that, I developed a model which combines the Sustainable Livelihoods Framework model, which is a bottom-up kind of model, and it looks at what assets people have. So it could be physical assets, social assets, personal assets. And so instead of looking at what deficits people have, you actually look at what they have. You work with them and see what is it that they have, that they have, what resources that they have that could actually use to build up their businesses. So this was a very exciting project. I then did a 2-year pilot project across all sectors while I was at Tequini College. And then while I was at Tequini College, I received a call from DTI, the Department of Small Business Development, who asked me if I'd like to submit a proposal for setting up a Center for Entrepreneurship. So that's how the Center for Entrepreneurship, or Center for Social Entrepreneurship, was set up at Durban University of Technology. And during that time, so we set up initially the program was basically to support communities as well as students. And when CEDA took over the monitoring and evaluation of our programs, they said to us, no, you can't use just this model. We need for you to become a proper incubator. So we had to adapt. And I think this is a journey as well. So nothing stays the same. I think that's one of the lessons we learned. So we actually adapted the model. We've got a full-on CEDA service flow model that we use, which is an 18-month program for incubation. It's across all sectors, but we've managed to retain the social part of it as well. So we also work with communities and develop businesses with communities. And this has been quite an exciting journey. So currently we have a startup program, which is for ideation stage, which is about a 3-month program. We have incubation, full-on incubation, where businesses are actually making money and they're able to be incubated. And that's an 18-month program. And then we've now got a localization program as well. And this is more of an accelerator kind of program for those businesses that have been through incubation. They are ready to go to markets, local as well as international, and be prepared really to grow their businesses and to create more further employment. So that's the localization program. It's very specific here, because we've got 4 sectors that we work in. We work in clothing, textile, footwear, and leather. We have chemicals. We have furniture making and agribusiness. So these are really exciting areas as well, because there's so much that can be done in these areas. A lot of these businesses, for example, in the clothing and textile, died when the markets were open. So now it's really about rekindling this, redeveloping these businesses. And it's a very exciting journey to be on. And so that's the localization program. Then we also have a supplier enterprise development program, which is very specific to the automotive sector. That's with the Caterpillar SA program. And so here, again, it's more of an accelerator. And this is where we actually focus on developing businesses along the value chain of the automotive sector. So that's the 4th program. And then I have to say the last program that we've just received approval for as well from CEDA is the Durban Textile and Leather Incubator. This is a new incubator that we'll be setting up specifically for clothing, textile, footwear, and leather. And this is a partnership between CEDA, eThekwini Municipality, and the university. It will involve research and development for the industry, for the entire sector, as well as bringing in the communities, all those businesses that are small businesses that are operating, bringing them in, providing them with further kind of training and development so that they're actually, and link them to the value chain of some of the bigger companies. Also, to also link them up with international African trade, with African countries, as well as international countries, to see how best we can actually link all these businesses to the different markets and the training and development for these businesses. So we have, in this program, we have two parts to it. The one is in Durban. We've decided to focus on the clothing and textile. And in Pietermaritzburg, we will be focusing on the footwear and leather. And I think that way, because there's a lot of footwear companies in Pietermaritzburg. There's enough space there as well. All the tanneries are in Pietermaritzburg. And we ran a program previously with the communities there where we taught them skin processing and leather manufacturing. So by bringing all these communities in, giving them an opportunity to learn further, to develop further skills, to grow their businesses. And I think the whole idea is to really to work together to develop the region. And in closing, what I'd like to say is that being here today, I hope this will be a wonderful opportunity as well for people from EDTIA, from the maritime sector, and Moses Kotane Institute, DUT, all of us, to work together to see how best we can actually collaborate, find the synergies that we can work together and really build KwaZulu-Natal into a thriving province. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Doc, for that wonderful, insightful speech. I like the way you showed the connection between academic research, action research, and eventually resulting in the actual fruit of that of those researches in a form of incubation and the training and supporting of our SMMEs and supporting our society and adding into the mandate of the province of economic development of our small communities. Thank you so much. I hope that those who are listening will be able to take some notes there and see how best we can make this work and take the research forward and action it into beautiful and productive businesses. And the next speaker will be, okay, it's not a speech per se, it's a session, a discussion that should be facilitated by our Dr. Langa Dlamini. He will introduce the topic and call the panelists up to the stage, give us their names and what their expertise are. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor and pleasure today to welcome you. My name is Langa Dlamini. I'm the Executive Manager, Maritime and Econometrics here at Moses Kotane. I'm going to be having a discussion, hopefully very interesting, certainly interesting for me. I'm going to be invite the panelists. I have two of them here as they're coming through. I have Ms. Zenzile Kwamanda, who is the Managing Director of eThekwini Maritime Cluster, and I also have Ms. Nomkita Mbele, not Mbele, people, Mbele, please coming up on stage. And online, I have Mr. Prashin Maraj, CEO of Sendok Astral, and Mr. Hans Motipane, they will also be joining us online. And thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Really, the central of our discussion, is it okay if I use this mic? I've switched it on. Thank you very much. Really, what we're looking at, there's been a lot of talk about entrepreneurship and maritime. And one asked themselves the question is, knowing what maritime business is like, and I think from our researchers, Moses Kotan, it has become very obvious that there are barriers to entry, especially for SMMEs. So I'm just going to give are we on now? Thank you very much. So there are obvious barriers to entry. I think I would like to start here first, here physically. I'll start with you, Ms. Commander. Just as an overview of the kind of challenges that you have seen and what the interventions that you've seen necessary. Can you just give us a brief on that?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Dlamini. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As I've been introduced, I'm Zenzile Kwamanda from eThekwini Maritime Cluster. And basically what we do, we promote and support the growth of the maritime sector in KZN. And mostly we do that by advocating by bridging the gap between the industrial policy from the government and the private sector. And our programs that we currently run as a cluster around enterprise and supply development, marine manufacturing, training and skills development, and also the industry promotion. And back to the question around the challenges and the interventions that we are doing as a cluster in assisting our communities to penetrate the maritime sector through the enterprise and supply development program that we currently run. First of all, we try and align our programs with the current focus areas of the oceans economy, because there's been work that's been done around that field, because we did we know when we looked into this, we found people to be very impatient and they were lacking information and knowledge in terms of those opportunities. So that is why we decided that since there is some work that's been done around the space on the oceans economy in terms of trying to focus for business opportunities, let us go and start there.
Sure. Look, people may be wondering why we've called you to be our panelist. You're the winner of the top 100 women in Africa supply chain in 2021. And she's also been responsible for driving 40 SMMEs in an incubation program. So the context is tangible of what you have achieved. Do you feel that this is moving forward with you, with all this knowledge on the one hand, and the kind of output that you get in putting what the EMC is doing?
Dr. Dlamini, there is a lot of work that still needs to be done. Currently, we're dealing with the communities that are hungry. I'm sure that has come out from the research that's been done by the university. People, they want something that's going to bear fruit now. They don't have the patience to go through the process, because we are all new. Most of us are new in this space. And there's lots of investment in terms of time and money getting information, being equipped, learning the industry, so that at least we know once you get it, it's a very big and a complex industry. So it's very important that when you get into the space, you have that patience to learn, so that at least you can be able to sustain yourself, in whatever opportunities that you have picked.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. I'm now going to go in line to Mr. Motipane. He's joining us from Pretoria. He's coming. These are men well, in fact, all these people wear different hats. Today's is coming in with the head of SA Cargo. Can I please have him joining us online? Mr. Motipane, good afternoon.
Afternoon, how are you, sir?
Good. Thank you very much. We appreciate you giving us your time today and being with us. We really appreciate that. Mr. Motipane, you've heard what Ms. Kwamanda has had to say about the opportunities that are there. Then this brings to mind the kind of value chain that is available in this space. Could you please give us your comments about this?
I really thank you so much for the invitation. Just use this app for hoping you can hear me.
Oh, it seems like we're battling a little bit there. Well,
Can you just confirm?
No. Yeah, the line is difficult a little bit. Maybe let's try again, Mr. Motipane.
Right, are you able to hear me now?
We hear you now. Please go ahead.
Perfect, thank you so much. I think we can all agree that maritime industry is very complex, diverse, and has many areas of business. It is the most important for cargo handling, container services, of politics, ports, cars, freight out, to name a few, to local long-distance transport, carrying, forwarding, export services, freight services, warehousing, and transportation. If you look at what I've just unpacked, these are the most obvious front or back of logistics services that one would find. And these are feeding off mainly seaborne trade, which is said to account for between 80-90% of our economy. It's therefore not really surprising that in most of my encounters with SMEs wanting to break into the industry, that you find that their focus is specifically also in these areas of maritime operations.
Sure.
This is really good to have more SMEs and especially the black companies entering the market. The high concentration in some of these already mature markets is really starting us, South Africa, the country, of the much needed innovation in the maritime space. We operate in a global market that is continuously exposed to many global risks. And over the last few years, we've seen how this has resulted in muted growth in some of these primary sectors that I've mentioned. We can see what happened last year at the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the risk on businesses that further multiplied. When you have everyone with new competition concentrated in one small area where, unfortunately, it then also becomes the same SMEs that are the first to close shop.
Sure.
So to better unlock the ocean's economy and really achieve the vision that is outlined in the comprehensive maritime transport policy for South Africa, which is to develop the maritime sector that will build on historic potential,
Sure.
contribute to economic growth, new business generation, and entrepreneurship and employment creation opportunities in the country. We will need to have more entrants in other spaces. Like if you look at the legal space, working for SA Cargo right now, we do a lot of commercial contracts, a lot of maritime contracts where it's very difficult to find a black maritime firm. In the space of maritime insurance, or be it brokerage or underwriting, we always have to go to London, for example,
Yes.
to get coverage. They take the terms that comes with a lot of other cost issues, a lot of other inefficiencies, which are then on pass to the market. So I think, influencing on the question there,
Sure.
we need to start innovating and breaking barriers into other spaces. There are common traditional business sectors that we always participate in, but that's not enough to help us generate the needed employment in the country.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Motipane. It's so interesting that you're touching on these. It wants me to, the natural attrition goes to Mr. Maharaj of this, who's also online. Mr. Maharaj, you've heard what Mr. Motipane has had to say. How well aligned, if aligned at all, are all these possible opportunities for entrepreneurs in the face of BE compliance and all other assistive measures that are put in place as policy? Can you please give us a comment on that?
Good morning, Program Director and colleagues in the panel. I could talk the entire day about this topic.
I know you can, but unfortunately, we don't have.
Yes. For me, in 2006, I started off as a black entrepreneur in a very closed industry, which is marine engineering. So that is the boat building, the ship building, the ship repair. And the thing about this industry, as much as it's located in South Africa, it is part of the global supply chain. Now, the global supply chain, unfortunately, does not care much about BE transformation. All they care about is to have the most efficient, reliable supply chain at the cheapest possible price.
Sure.
So, automation is not part of the agenda. However, in South Africa, we find that to effect transformation, we in a very strong position, but simultaneously in a very weak position. So the entire maritime supply chain is largely controlled around the ports. And that port has a monopoly owned by the state called Transnet. So we in a very
tight
position to effect transformation through license, concession, etc. But unfortunately, because we're part of the global supply chain, we find that Transnet is hampered in being able to effectively play the role. Secondly, if they're able to play the role, we find that green policies are not implemented.
Mr. Maharaj, allow me to interrupt you because there's a point I do not want to miss. You've mentioned a very important thing that from our research, it has become very clear for people who really understand what you're talking about. That's a very, very pivotal point. Now, maritime being something that is controlled outside of the province, outside of national parameters, what then do you say to the SMME who's listening today? Are you saying forget about this, or there's another avenue? Because what I've heard so far emphasizes the existence of the barrier. Just give us a way in. That's what they're saying. What would you say to that person?
Yes, Program Director, for me, I never give up. My core competency, I believe I'm a perseverer. We are currently building the largest, most complex hydrographic survey vessels in the world for the South African Navy. When I first approached the Navy back in 2007, they were so entrenched in Germany to supply all the maritime needs. But what we were able to do was to, first of all, get the key decision maker to say, you have this policy on localization, you have the policy on BE, you can't just have it on paper, you've got to live it. So it was almost a political mandate then from the key decision makers in the leadership of the Navy, in the leadership of the Department of Defense, to give us a space to engage. Once we got that space to engage, then our true entrepreneurship kicked in to say, guys, that as much as you feel we as black companies cannot be successful shipbuilders, but look at our track record, look at the skill we have, look at the teams that we have. We borrowed on international best practices, we took advantage of enterprise development opportunities promoted by the EMC, TTR, and other such organizations. Because you know what, no one is going to believe you until you prove yourself. So you can't just sit there and despair and hope that after you got the political blessing, you actually then got to prove that you have the technical capabilities, that you've got the right certification, and then you've got the right resources. And that brings me to the other biggest challenge is capital.
Capital.
I always say, black people, black entrepreneurs, key players, my late partner John Kunazi would say, we are capitalists without capital.
Sure.
And that is because in the maritime industry is so capital intensive, we are always hamstrung because we've got hundreds, if not thousands of black engineers who can participate in the marine engineering industry. They lack two things. They lack access to the networks and they lack capital. And for me, if our GFIs like IDC, GBSA, Ichala, KZN, Goldman, and others don't come around to back the SMEs who got the skills, knowledge, and capability
Sure.
to participate in the industry, we're not going to make meaningful progress.
So you are saying now you are talking to the policymakers.
Yes.
If I get you right, you're saying for the entrepreneur, that guy must make sure that they have all the passion, all the knowledge, and all the preparedness to go through the whole process. You are saying be patient and push through. But no matter how much you push through, you still need help from a policy point of view and proper funding for you to get into the space. Will that be correct encapsulation of what you're saying?
The patience, I think we've run out of patience.
Of course. Thank you very much, Mr. Maharaja. Thank you for that. We will surely get you back onto this at Moses Kotana, and we'll certainly have more time. We would really love to hear more on that. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been joined by Captain Zulu, who is wearing a cap today, as different from the one that we know him as at Moses Kotane today. Captain Begazuli is coming in as Deputy Chair of the South African Maritime Business Forum. So I just want to go first to Ms. Nomkita Mbele. Sis, 17 years in the industry, you come in doubles, black woman, powerful. You've done things that even very few men have done. You've been in salvage. You've been in ship-to-ship bunkering. You've done all kinds of things. I can take quite a long time to kind of summarize your CV. But what I'm interested in most, I'll get to salvage at that time. It's very interesting. It will be very interesting to hear your views of that. You've heard what Mr. Maharaj has to say. You've heard what Ms. Kwamanda has to say. It seems, from what has been said, and it is true, it's difficult to get into the space. We have someone who's listening at home and say, and here in the audience and say, how am I going to do this? And we have you here as an example. Tell us, out of all, just tell us a little bit on bunkering, especially on STS.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
And she looks at the watch.
No,
That's how much she
I
has
was,
to
I was
say.
checking if it's morning or afternoon. Just,
It is, it
I'm
is.
correct.
Thank you.
As Dr. Langa has said, my name is Nomkita Mbele. I'm the Regional Director of Fendeke Marine, a world specialist in ship-to-ship transfers. And maybe just to, before I answer your question, just to make a definition between ship-to-ship and bunkering.
Please do.
Bunkering is transfer of fuel from one vessel to another for the purposes of propulsion. So for the vessel to move from one place to another. Whereas STS is the same. However, it is a transfer of fuel from one ship to another for the purposes of trading. So
Thank
the
you.
volumes then become very much different.
Sure.
To answer your question, I mean, I think I need to agree with the speakers, is that I feel our biggest barrier is the government and the parastatals and the policy. We have the
Sure.
most amazing progressive policies in this country when it comes to entrepreneurship. However, accessing those policies and making those policies work for small business is the problem. We push so hard with government. And I think, as Mr. Maharaj says, it becomes problematic when you have a monopoly that is Transnet, and you only have that institution to deal with when it comes to breaking barriers of entry And even that becomes difficult when we now as industry bring the business and say, here's the business, here's the concept. We want to implement the concept in the country, because the reality is that the maritime industry needs to evolve. We are not a ship owning country.
Sure.
We have big institutions like DUT, like CPUT, that produce students that have studied nautical science every year. And only about 20%, if we're lucky, of those students
Sure.
get cadetship.
Let me hold you right there. I'm going to come back to you. This is another thing that's come across all the speakers, which is almost very difficult to dispute now, which you've just touched on. Are we over-advertising maritime? Are we exaggerating the case? Because these are now murmurs that are coming back to say there is so much that is coming. I'll give you my view so that you can have a way of where you want to pitch this. On the one hand, my view is that there are two sides to the story. On the one hand, maritime is not sufficiently known. So which means for somebody who's coming in, will first have to think about how to think about this animal and how to eat it. The other side is once you're in, it's highly specialized that you can't fail at this and stop and try that. You really have to be particular. I just want to hear your view. For someone who's listening, how are they to digest this? Is it oversold? Is it, are we making too much of a fuss about this? You are here in the space. How did you make it? How did you break the entry?
I think a certain part of the industry is over advertised. I think the maritime industry is an elephant, it's a big elephant with different chunks into
Sure.
it, you know. And I think initially
are
when
the
I've been
ends.
here for 17 years, and when I started in the industry, I went to Law Hill, which is a maritime school in Cape Town, and then I went to CPUT, was Cape Tech at the time, to
Sure.
do nautical science. It was still relatively new. So there were a lot of opportunities for seagoing. And also we had a lot of companies that were South African seagoing companies, like your Maersks, your Submarines, your Greenrod, your AMSOR, which was Mitamandla. And all those companies are no longer in the country.
Sure.
Maersk pulled out cadetship for South Africans about 2 years ago. Greenrod is now based in Singapore. So they've all pulled out. So the industry looks different than it did 17 years ago. But however, we haven't evolved. We
Sure.
still advertise seagoing while we have 80% of students year on year that don't get cadetship. But yet we still go to conferences, and you've got Samsa and everybody else standing in the podium and say, oh, seagoing, go study nautical science, you know, you're going to go earn dollars overseas. But the problem is that we're now competing with a global seafarer pool.
Absolutely. Going back to the point that Mr. Maharaj is saying, but one thing I'm still keen on here, how did you break in? I understand you come from what I can call the old school,
Yes,
Simon's
very old
Town, and all that, just after Maersk broke up, rather submarine. But tell us how then have you survived if you got in from that era to somebody who's coming in who doesn't have the advantages that you've counted? What would you say to them?
I think for me, it is, I mean, I'm not going to say there's anything special about me that got me to where I am.
I would differ,
But I
but
think,
anyway.
I think that being persistent in hard work, and also I've had mentors. I am very
mentors.
passionate about mentoring because I've seen what that did for me. I got into companies, with every company I got into, I identified a mentor. I approached that person to say, I need a mentor. I need to know this. I need you to teach me whatever you know.
Hunger.
Same thing go with seafarers. You know, I worked in a company where you had ships, and I used to go to the captains. And it's so difficult because we get there and they say, well, you're a young black girl, you've never been to sea. What can you tell me? And I said, not much, but I'm
Scrap the
hoping
flow.
you can teach me
Yes.
something. You know, I'm hoping you can teach me so that I know at least half of what you know, and I'll be happy. And I think that's the thing. We need to identify mentors. We need to emphasize mentorship, because unfortunately, sometimes in the maritime industry, you can't study something. It's very difficult to study something because it's so vast. So a lot of the knowledge comes from those before you. And therefore, for me, I've always relied on mentors. Even today, where I am, I still have mentors. And I'm now a mentor because I've seen what that does for me,
Sure.
what it's done for me. And I want to do that for the kids and the students that come after me.
Thank you very much for that. I can certainly attest to that. Mentorship, key. Mr. Zulu, thank you for joining us. In all of this, you've heard what Mr. Maraj has to say in particular. In all of this, is there a lower hanging fruit? Is there if the first door that the person can come in and say, boom, that's where I can start?
Thank you. Good morning, MKI executives and the audience in the business sector. Yeah, my name is Pega Zulu. I represent the South African Maritime Business Forum, which was one of the voice of business that was launched by the Department of Transport to focus on nurturing SMMEs and also be the voice and the vocal activity for activists for the society at large. In answering your question, in the maritime sector, they speak about low-hanging fruits. And in theory, it will look like a real possibility. And, you know, I was looking at your theme today that speaks about the barriers of the industry.
Yes.
And I think what we should go back to as a sector is to measure what we're doing and where we've been.
Sure.
And if you look at some of the tools in the sector, you have pillars of empowerment. Empowerment does not mean, you know, racial discrimination as it's always perceived, but it's a way of saying, let's have a baseline. If you look at pillars of empowerment, we talk about ownership. Are you in the sector with the aim of owning, or are you owning something? Could be a small business, could be a small PTY LTD. It could be a big chunk of a slice. And we have the sector codes that are promulgated by the DTI, and they always advocate for 50+1. And if you look at the sector, one of the barriers is that we have not, unlike the mining sector, we have not been able to enforce that as a country in terms of certain structured deals within government or certain structured deal within the parastatals. And I think that's where we should start and saying, if we focus on low-hanging fruits, what are we aiming? Because, you know, we do a lot of skills development, which I'm going to come to as also one of the pillars. The second aspect is management control. Management in a sense that, are you involved in the business or you're just an equity partner? And that will measure then how much of leverage do you have
to run the business?
To be in the sector.
Sure.
To actually then start identifying what you call low-hanging fruits. I've never seen low-hanging fruits in the sector per se, but I've seen a lot of hard work and innovation.
Sure.
And I'm just going to come to your point. And the other aspect is skills development, which is I advocate. The likes of EMC are quite strong in that, because there's a huge chunk of SMMEs that want to be in sector, but they lack skills.
Sure.
And I think that's where the focus should be. But coming back to your question that you've asked, Keita, to say, are we over exaggerating the influx? And they, you know, the other society will say, we are flooding the market, you know, and it's one of the critics that you always find. And the question is that psychology has been studied for how many years? Accountancy has been there in universities, all universities. All other professions have been historic professions, and they still train accountants, psychologists, social scientists, and the like. The question is, how do you then define the maritime industry? I think the misconception is that we always see maritime as a seagoing.
Sure.
And I've had a change of...
Whereas it's wider than that.
It's bigger than
there
that.
There are downstream businesses that can be derived from that.
True. And I think from a seafarer in me, the orientation has been chase the business that's within the water. But the question is, 2/3 of the activity that leads to that business
It's offshore.
it happens inland.
Yes.
Rather. And that's a misconception we always have to say, we must chase low-hanging fruits. But what are we chasing? We're looking at the harbor. We're saying, maybe I can be ship chandler. The question is, what do you need to be a ship chandler? There's so lot of bureaucracy that associates with it. You need to have specific compliance that you need in terms of you being the supplier. And there's also an undocumented provincial procurement within the sector. The sector is based on who you know and the relationships. And those people most know, they always think, oh, you're gonna get a nice contract that comes from a certain organization. You look at ship agency. It's all relationships. It's undocumented relationships.
I agree with you, Mr. Zuldi, but for a person who's coming in, says, I'm new, these are issues that we can discuss among us. I'm very conscious that we have an audience, a listener in closing, who may not be so au fait with the maritime industry. In the most simple way, how would you say they must challenge the barrier that exists? How do they overcome even that small step, that entrance step? Mr. Mara just said, you push, you persevere, although we're tired of persevering. This is, Ms. Mbele said, look, get a mentor, be hungry, push for it. Ms. Commander said, listen, you have to get into these programs and run with them and make sure that you are there. And Mr. Motipane is saying, look, there's a value chain, you look at it overall. For you, what is that one liner that you can leave the listener with?
All I can say is that as a young entrepreneur or a person wanting to venture into the sector, you need to have innovative approach to the sector.
Sure, open-minded.
Open-minded. You must have a value-adding proposal to the sector.
Sure.
And that's where you craft your niche or you craft your space. If you come to my business and you say, I've been at sea for 20 years, I say,
so what?
You know, who cares? But what value are you going to add in my business?
Sure,
And that's where I start engaging. And if you look at other professions, you look at marine surveying.
Sure.
It's an overrated career per se because it looks good. And it's a business, noble business. But if you ask me if it's a low-hanging fruit,
No.
I'll say yes and no. I'll say yes because there's no formal qualification
Sure.
to become a marine surveyor. It's what I call monkey see, monkey do, for lack of a better word. So you learn from those who have been in the sector,
Sure.
and they, like she said, they mentor you, and before you know it, you can start at a lower level.
Thank you.
Obviously, when you rise up, you need other
People to
compliance.
come
Yeah.
out. Thank you very much, Mr. Zulu. Before the program director chooses and splits me, we can see that this is very interesting, and I thank Mr. Motipane for his time and Mr. Maraj. We certainly must have more of these dialogues, which we will definitely, as Moses Kotane, set them up in the coming year and get these kind of panels going. And we hopefully at that time will even allow some people to call in and ask us as experts these questions. But I thank you very much for your time. And unfortunately, my time has run out. I'm now going to go back. I almost said to the studio. Advocate Mapipa, Program Director, thank you. Can you please give them a hand? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much to Dr. Langadlamini and his panel, Mr. Maharaj, Mr. Motipane, Ms. Mbele, Mrs. Kwamanda, and our very own Captain Abega Zulu, who was here on a different cap, as Dr. Langa has explained. But we are very proud that we have him as one of our board members at the Moses Kotane Institute. Before then, He was with the Moses Kotane Institute on a different role a few years back. Thank you so much. The discussion was very inspiring, and I'm sure most of the attendees here and those who are attending at home have more ideas now on how to get into the industry and how to approach different options that are available for entrepreneurs within the industry of maritime. Now we're gonna move on to the awards session and call up to the stage our Mr. Vusim Hlongo, the Executive Manager, Innovation and Technology, up to the stage to hand over the awards together with Dr. Langa Dlamini, Executive Manager, Maritime and Econometrics, to the award winners. Thank you so much.
Greetings. Thanks to the program director, Advocate Mapipa. Greetings to the board, to the CE, to the executive, and to our panelists. Thank you for being part of this entrepreneurial market dialogue. Today, I would like to present to you our winners for the development of a data collection tool. The background, as Ms. Como has alluded, MKI is a research institute that conducts world research that responds to our socio-economical needs. With that backdrop, through the leadership of our CEO, Dr. Ellenson, it became fit that we develop our own data collection tool that will facilitate the collection of data to stimulate our research. We took a different route in terms of procuring the development of this tool in order to ignite innovation and stimulate entrepreneurship. In celebrating the Entrepreneurship Month, we find it fit that we present our winners with the certificate of winning this hackathon. A hackathon, it's a combination or an amalgamation of two words, meaning hacker and a marathon. It's more of a competitive approach in terms of procuring. MKI as a state-owned entity, we had to subscribe to the PFMA in terms of the procurement of this tool. It was an intense selection process, which saw us advertising or issuing out a call for proposals. And there were 23 applicants or respondents. 3 were shortlisted and were asked to come and present their prototypes and their approach. A successful company, one who presented the prototype that was fit for our purpose, is the company that we will be presenting today with the certificate. I would like to call upon our winners. That is CodeBrain. I would like to call upon, first I would like to congratulate CodeBrain for winning this hackathon marathon. Mr. Sandile Zuma and Simo Majola, please come to.
And as we proceed with the awards, and the following falls under the entrepreneurship program, which has 3 categories, 2, 3, and 4. We, in this, let me not say we, because the committee is very independent. They will kill me if I were to say we, to include myself. We have 3 awards. The first one is the innovative, the first one is the Perseverance Award. It recognizes that participant that endured in difficult times, as the one that we've had. This person was awarded for having endured disability challenges and all other challenges to go through the program. And I'll call all them up so that we can award them at the same time for ease. And then the next one is an Innovative Mind Award, which goes to a person whose business was trashed during the surge and the scourge of violence that we've had in our province, but they were able to just take the business back and formulate it and work through their suppliers and still carry on. And the next award, beg your pardon, the next award goes to Creative Mind. This is a person the judges selected to have the most creative ideas. This person took ethnic tokens and converted them into modern days use, everyday use. So I'm going to call them in the reverse order, and I'd like to call the winner of the Creative Mind Award, Ms. Tlengiwe Mieza. Please let's give her a hand. And also call for Perseverance Award, Mr. Sibonelo Mselegu. And I would also like to call Innovative Mind Award, Ms. Nomvelo Lutuli. Thank you very much. And these people, these recipients get a certificate and a package which gives them assistive tools, particularly a laptop, and acceptance to DUT incubation program for the following year, and all in the tune of 50,000 Rand, which I think will really assist them in their endeavors. Let's give them a hand again. And I'll call our CEO, Dr. Ellenson, to help us with the awards. Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let me take this opportunity to again call Advocate Mapipa, our brilliant, beautiful program director. Please give her a hand.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to all the winners. You are all superstars, and you deserve another round of applause. And you all deserve a woo shame. Okay, now as we are closing, I would like to call upon Dr. Thandeka Ellenson, the CEO of the Moses Kotane Institute, to give us her closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director, and thank you very much to our guests, our distinguished guests that have joined us today, physically as well as online. It is a privilege for us as the Moses Kotane Institute to be closing this month on the 30th of November with such a celebration of entrepreneurs in the province, especially those that are in the innovation space and those that are in the maritime space. As you can see, the Moses Kotane Institute is an institute that focuses on research and innovation. So, and in everything that we do, we will have that element of research and innovation regardless of the sector that we are dealing with. So with that, I would like to thank our chairperson of the board, Ms. Como, who is driving this ship and ensures that we are governed properly and that we are complying in everything that we do. It is an honor for us to be led by such a wonderful woman who is very strict, by the way, if I must say. Everything that we do, she makes sure that we do it, in line or in accordance with the law. So we really would like to thank Ms. Como for that. And before I move on, I would like to thank our program director, a very beautiful program director who has driven this program and ensured that we finished almost on time. But we appreciate the discussions that we had. And we would like to thank our speaker, Mr. Mtembu, who has given us a new tagline today, which says collaboration is the new innovation. Mr. Mtembu he mentioned that some years ago he observed the maritime industry and decided that he would want to close the gap and he would want to come up with an innovative solution to the maritime industry. And today he's in the industry that is worth billions of dollars, and that is commendable. I think let's give him a round of applause. And we have seen Dr. Pillay demonstrating to us how research and innovation underpins the operations of entrepreneurship. We've mentioned or we've seen how entrepreneurs struggle. Entrepreneurship is really not easy, ladies and gentlemen. If you think about how entrepreneurs are not able to even think about going on holiday, or if there's going to be a close down as we are going on holiday now, with employed people, they are unable to do that because they constantly have to think about, what to do, what to put the pieces, how to put the pieces together. How are they going to be paying their employees? How are they going to paying for their rent? How are they going to attract new customers and all of that? And research shows us, all the challenges that we have under entrepreneurship. We have challenges when it comes to infrastructure. We have challenges when it comes to finance. We have challenges when it comes to attracting customers. we have technical challenges, and often you find that an entrepreneur knows their businesses, but they have a challenge, in driving or in complying with the business requirements. And, for entrepreneurs to be here today where they are, especially in the maritime sector, it is quite commendable. I think let's give all entrepreneurs a round of applause. And thank you very much, Dr. Dlamini, for driving the panel discussion. It was fruitful. We learned a lot. We understood that we have to, as Captain Zulu mentioned, that we have to tackle the pillars, pillars such as empowerment, pillars such as ownership, pillars such as skills development. And we now know that there are no hanging fruits. I mean, Mr. Maharaj mentioned that there is no such thing as patience anymore, because we've been at this for quite a long time and we've run out of patience. So we've heard the speaker mentioning that we need to tackle the issues of policies. I think it's Ms. Namkita who mentioned the issues of policies and mentioned the issues of mentorship, that we should position ourselves to find mentors. But also, once you are up there, make sure that you mentor others. And I think that, will help, uplift us as a nation, as people in the maritime industry. And we would like to thank our partners as well, the EMC Economic Maritime Cluster, which is led by Ms. Kwamanda. And she's been with us for quite some time, and she's been driving the ship. And it's quite commendable that, the work that they do, they, has seen her winning that award. It is quite commendable. Thank you very much to our panelists. And I would like to thank Mr. Vusi Mhlongo for driving that innovation challenge, which saw us having our two winners in the data collection tool as a research institute, as well as Dr. Langa Dlamini, who's also have given the awards to entrepreneurs in this day and age of the 30th of November 2021. And I think we would like to congratulate all the winners today, and those that perhaps are still upcoming. There will be more chances for them, to see or to enter into this and have opportunities for them to win. Let us give all entrepreneurs a round of applause. And I would like to thank our mother body, the economic development, through the leadership of our MEC Ravi Pillay, for ensuring that, Moses Kotane is where it is today, and that we are tackling this issue of maritime, this issue of economic development through maritime. We know that entrepreneurship is the backbone of the economy, especially informal economy. And we would like to really thank our mother Department of Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs. And over and above that, I would like to thank all the team, firstly, all the board members of the Moses Kotane Institute, starting from the chairperson of the board, and to mention especially Captain Zulu, Bega Zulu, who is here with us today, as a board member of the Moses Kotane Institute, and as a responsible member for the issues of the maritime within the Moses Kotane Institute. Over and above that, I would like to thank all the executives of the Moses Kotane Institute and those that are present here today, starting with Advocate Mapipa, who's the executive for corporate services, followed by Dr. Langa Dlamini, who's the executive for maritime and econometrics, and followed by Mr. Vusi Mhlongo, who is the executive for innovation and technology, followed by all management and all staff and all the organizers and the teams and the IT staff who has helped us with this, as well as our videographer that is present today. And ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for your attendance for this session. And with those that are attending physically, I will just point to the left. You know what to do. I won't mention what to do because there are people that are attending online. I don't want to create issues, but you know what to do. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for attending this session. We'll see you next time. Thank you.